Hello, everyone. I'm excited to share how Polygon sees blockchain playing a part in building a more sustainable future. I'm sure many of you have seen the conversations that have been occurring over the past year, and the conversation between blockchain and its environmental impact has been very singularly focused. When I tell people that I work at the intersection between blockchain and environmental impact, I often get the same question, but isn't that bad for the environment? So it's a complex answer, but today I'm going to try to convince you that, in actual fact, this may actually play a part in assisting in building the future we all want. Today I'm here to tell you about how the conversation is moving from blockchain sustainability to blockchain as a sustainability solution. So just to get a quick show of hands, how many people think that blockchain is bad for the environment? Okay, there's a couple there. How many people understand why it's bad for the environment? Okay, so you think you know. Okay, so who's heard the term the merge in the past month? Okay, so the two most prominent and perhaps most well-known blockchains are what's known as a proof-of-work blockchain. So that would be Bitcoin and Ethereum. This is why they're much more energy efficient, or energy intensive, sorry, than a lot of the other solutions, such as Polygon, which operates on proof of stake. But what happened in the past month is the second most well-known blockchain, known as Ethereum, moved to proof of stake and reduced its energy consumption by 99%. That's equivalent to approximately 0.2% of the global energy consumption, as you can see from this. So to tell you a little bit more about Polygon, Polygon, as I said, is proof of stake. It's been proof of stake since 2017, which is the reason why its historical emissions profile is much smaller than the alternatives, such as Ethereum. However, it is not separate from Ethereum. We operate on top of the Ethereum network as a scaling solution. So our purpose is to solve the scalability trilemma, which is threefold. So that is the transaction cost, the throughput, or number of transactions that can take place per second, and the time of a transaction. So as an example, if you take the current amount of transactions that can take place on Ethereum, it's about 15 to 20 per second. As you can see from this, Polygon is much, much faster. So as I mentioned before, the carbon footprint conversation. So Polygon exists on top of the Ethereum blockchain, which means that we're responsible for a portion of their emissions. As such, with the change that occurred just last week, it means that Polygon's emissions profile has also decreased by an approximate 99%. So for a frame of reference, we had third parties audit our footprint, and for the previous year, between 2021 to 2022, our overall annual emissions profile was around 60,000 tons. Now we're looking at an approximate 56 tons per year for our energy emissions. And this is not because we're producing less transactions than, say, Ethereum or Bitcoin. In fact, our transaction volume per year is almost twice what the Ethereum network is. And as you can see from this chart, you can see we're also one of the most efficient networks available. And this doesn't mean we're ignoring the conversation of what our historical emissions are. This is not about us saying, from now on, we're going to be more energy efficient. Earlier in the year, we had two third parties audit and scrutinize our footprint, calculate our footprint, to which we then purchased and retired an equivalent amount of carbon credits to offset our entire historical emissions. But this is not the reason that I'm here today. This is not to talk about neutralizing our profile. This is about having a bigger conversation. What I want to posit today is how we can use blockchain as a sustainability solution and forget about the conversation of us neutralizing our emissions, but instead use this technology for better. So a quick number here. As I mentioned before, we offset our historical emissions, which is a total of about 105,000 tons. But so far, our network has been used to purchase and retire over 500,000 tons. And these are not all just credits from existing registries. These are also new technologies that are implementing new ways to create more transparent, more efficient formats for carbon credits. However, the conversation goes even further, and this is only one portion of what I want to talk to you about today. We believe blockchain sustainability is about more than operating responsibly. We see blockchain as a technology that has the potential to support and scale lasting positive impact on the world. So I'm just going to use an example that most people will be familiar with. This is probably the thing that people think about when they think about blockchain technology. So, currency. Simple conversation and a good place to start. And again, this also is not to point fingers at anyone. It is to showcase the rate of innovation that has happened within the blockchain space. So, as you can see, our old emissions profile is not very efficient. But compared to today, in just 10 years, much more efficient. What other industry can you name that in 10 years since its inception has managed to reduce its emissions profile by 99% through pure innovation? That's the kind of thing that we're looking for to drive the types of solutions that we need at the speed and scale that we need them. And here are just some of the ways. Not sure why the logos didn't populate, but that's OK. Here are some of the ways that we're exploring how this technology can be used. Because there's the one side of the conversation that I'm sure is a popular buzzword here, which is the carbon credit conversation, around how we can offset existing emissions. But there's the other portion, which is how do we actually reduce the amount of emissions that we're making? And that's where this can come in. So I actually have a partner here today, one of our ecosystem members, to talk to you about one of these solutions. And that's the conversation around supply chain. So I'll be very excited to introduce you to Mark Patterson from Real Items to talk to you about his project.
Hey, Stefan. Hey, everybody. And thanks, Stefan. Hi, Nest Summit. My name is Mark Patterson, and I lead growth at Real Items. So, click the next slide. So our mission is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable products. If there's any number of you in the audience that are in the circularity space and understand the circular economy, I'm sure you've heard the legislation that's coming out of the EU around digital product passports, and the EU Commission enabling and forcing companies to comply with identifying products so we can have circularity, we can have traceability. So that's very much what we're focused on. We're doing this on Polygon. They're a great ecosystem partner and amazing blockchain that suits our climate needs and also suits our scalability needs and privacy needs to bring the biggest enterprises in the world onto blockchains and to hold those companies accountable to governments so that their products are traceable and we can unlock next generation services, so the next generation of what products will be. So we were founded in 2019. We've actually updated the deck since this, but we actually put on another 1 million items on chain in the last day since this deck came out. Done over $52 million in total MSRP value on chain. And so one of the projects that we're specifically working on, we're building a next generation circularity ecosystem for plastics with ResiChain. So ResiChain, jump to the next slide. So ResiChain is a plastics consortium started by BASF. BASF is the largest chemical producer in the world. Their goal is to make plastic reusable. You know, virgin plastic is a big problem. It ends up in our environments. It ends up in landfills. Ends up in oceans. This is a big problem. And one of the biggest reasons for that is we don't have identity for plastic to enable circularity, whether it's the chemical composition of plastic, whether that's the environmental indicators, circularity indicators, a lot of information that would be useful to a MRF, to recyclers, to many different participants from the manufacturer to the brand owner to the consumer throughout the value chain, the plastics value chain that can make plastic reusable. And this is a future that we all want to get to. We all want to see plastic not in our environment, not in landfills. So this is a large consortium that we've come into. We're bringing Polygon in to be involved to build out a blockchain ecosystem traceability for plastic. So ideally, we can use this as a use case to get toward a future of, hey, we don't ever have to have plastic going to landfill. We can reuse all the plastic that we ever make. We can reduce our dependency on virgin plastic and start to accelerate reusable plastic. And this, not only is this for plastic, but this connects with many kinds of products. So with the focus on digital product passports, this connects to a number of industries from automotive, chemicals, as we just talked about, to consumer goods, to textiles and fashion, to batteries. Like every industry that touches a physical product is a customer to what could be the digitization of everything to enable these new circular economies. And as I'm sure many of you who are aware of the circular economy and know the space know is that digitization is a very core tenet of making this transition. And one of the biggest difficulties for companies is making that transition. A lot of it is a human coordination issue with all these big enterprises that otherwise have never really had to talk to each other before. Now they have to come to the table and figure out how they're going to share data amongst one another, how they're going to do so without disclosing competitive secrets, without giving up competitive information, but being able to do the right thing within the boundaries of what their shareholders would like and what we'd like to see in terms of moving toward a more sustainable future. So the idea of the digital product passport touches lots of things beyond just identity. By giving everything its own passport, you can have data that gets added to any individual product, whether it's this jacket or this chair or these glass bottles, to hold companies accountable to claims in terms of how these products get made, where the resources come from, have that in an immutable way that governments can audit and maintain compliance for companies to prevent greenwashing, such that when they put the data that they'd otherwise be using today to prove any sort of sustainability claim is in a centralized database, right? So they can fudge the data, they can change it. Governments can't really hold companies accountable to data that they otherwise might create or might show them. But by using blockchains, we can have immutability. We can have data that once they put it into the digital product passport, they can't change it. They're accountable to that data if they fudge it or if it's truthful. And we can start to build reputation systems and modes of accountability to really hold companies to account to move towards a more sustainable future. So digital product passports touch a lot of different aspects of the circular economy. It's very attractive to enterprises that want to make this transition and enable what we describe as the sort of next generation enterprise, where sustainability isn't just about reducing what we use and eating less meat, and those are very important parts of it. But it's also a lot about innovation and a lot about how do we help enterprises not only be more sustainable, but continue to drive revenue, continue to do a very good job in terms of not just sacrificing innovation as it relates to sustainability. So that digital product passports can enable circular markets, enable circular materials, circular supply chains, circular operations, circular strategies, circular governance, and circular business models. So allowing companies to have service models for their products to make them, to extend the life cycle of all things, circular markets so that instead of buying primary materials and extracting resources out of the environment, they can be getting resources from other supply chains. So they can be sharing materials across supply chains. Ideally in the future, we can get to self-driving supply chains so that all supply chains globally can just share resources amongst one another. Circular strategies, so like how companies can best use and best incorporate the savings that they're achieving with circular materials to maybe sell waste within their enterprise to another company, right? That's like a circular strategy. And even enabling, again, circular supply chains. So how do we connect companies that otherwise haven't needed to sort of share these resources previously, in our linear world where, everyone extracts resources, makes products, they sell to consumers, and it ends up in a landfill. How do we take that line, from cradle to grave and turn it and bend it into a circle? And after bending it into a circle, how do we get these companies to all communicate with each other, to govern? How do we remove the barriers that make it really hard to coordinate across these global enterprises to move towards a more sustainable future? So that's very much what we're focused on in collaborating with Polygon, building out real items, and yeah, I'd love to pass it back to Stefan so he can introduce Alex, and hope you guys enjoy the rest of the summit.
So Mark is just one example of the many projects that are building on Polygon. So far since 2017, we've had more than 37,000 projects building on our network. And as you can see, the ecosystem focused on sustainability is growing, and they're targeting many different issues. And so next up, I'm very excited to introduce Alex Moukas from OCEEF to talk to you about some very interesting solutions that are being built on Polygon.
Thanks, Stefan. Thank you, everybody. Why don't we roll the video?
Python, I confirm hatch is secure and life support systems are running, ready to open vents and dive.
Understood. Have a good day.
And we are underwater. Totally epic.
100%. This is fantastic.
We are sea trialing Aurelia. Look at her do science. Woo!
There's a couple of different things we found along the way. This whole lane is littered with stuff.
You're directly over the stern, so if you come 70 meters south.
Roger. Our present depth is 25 meters.
Epic dive so far. We are on the bottom.
How deep are we?
We're at 30 meters.
Okay, so we are OCEEF, which stands for the Ocean Conservation, Exploration, Education, and Education Foundation, which is a mouthful, but this is what we're trying to do. If you look at our ship, it's one of the most capable oceanographic vessels out there. BBC Blue Planet 2 was filmed on the ship. We have on board the world's deepest diving immersive submersible. So it's a sub, but not a metal sub. With tiny portholes. It's an immersive sub with an acrylic bubble, which makes you feel like you're in the water. And we're taking this sort of ship around the world because we would like to bring scientists on board to very interesting missions, then bring mega influencers on board to, well, document these missions, but try to make the science accessible. So not be wonky, but be interesting, catchy, and build content, let's say, for the TikTok and the Instagram generation. Why are we doing this? Because we really believe that going after kids and young adults is critical in terms of instilling the right behaviors into them early on, because that way they're going to be much better stewards of the planet. So a ship that goes around the world, sort of number one. Number two, do interesting things. Number three, present these things in interesting ways, in ways that are accessible to that sort of very, very broad audience. And as importantly, engage with that audience and try to make them to change their behaviors. I mean, our goal as a nonprofit is really strive to drive behavior change at a massive scale and engagement. And the only way to do that is through technology. So we're actually doing some sort of very interesting missions. For instance, the ship right now is somewhere between the Maldives and the Seychelles. We're trying to, along with our partner Renton, we work with a lot of other nonprofits. Our major partner is Buidl, the largest oceanographic institution out there. With our partner Renton right now on the Indian Ocean, we're trying to essentially help the Maldivian government designate 30% of their exclusive economic zone as a protected area, as a marine protected area. After that, we're off to Cape Town in South Africa, where we have an amazing mission with local scientists that have been tagging orcas and great white sharks. So the orcas are attacking the great whites. They grab them, they flip them, which puts the great whites in a state of tonic immobility, which means it's like an off switch. Then they proceed to eat their livers, sometimes their hearts, and they let the carcass flow. So we need to understand why that behavior is happening, number one. Number two, the great whites are essentially so terrorized that they're essentially migrating away. Our next mission, we're crossing, and this winter we're in Antarctica. We're going to try to find and film for the first time the colossal squid. This ship managed to find and film the giant squid, and giant squids exist everywhere. Colossal squids, though, they live only in the deep trenches of Antarctica. So they're almost as big as buses, think sort of more than 40, 45 foot long, and they're really annoying because they have the largest eye in the animal kingdom, which means that they can see you much before you can see them. So they're hard to find. But we have some pretty good ideas about doing that. And then we're off to the Patagonian fjords and off to the Galapagos. So we're doing some sort of very interesting things. And then the goal is to take these missions and try to democratize access to the ship, expose this content to a lot of different people out there. And some of this content is sort of, linear or quasi-linear. We're really interested in sort of 30, 60-second pieces that are catchy and engaging to get people's attention. But we're also interested in democratizing access to the vessel. Because if you look at what we're dealing with an issue of a denominator of 8 billion people, right? When you have a denominator of 8 billion, your numerator, better be significant, otherwise nothing changes. So what we're trying to do is democratize through Web3 technologies, through on-chain technologies, first of all, democratize access to the ship. So we're building replicas of the ship that we want to insert to popular games out there, like maybe Fortnite, or popular metaverses, like Sandbox. So people, when we're away, because the ship typically is in the middle of nowhere, when we're away, people can use their avatar and go and visit the ship. But we're also uploading all of our data in real time. So let's say you visit the ship, you're going to see, we're in PNG, you're going to see Papua New Guinea. You're in Antarctica, you're going to see the ice. You can visit our mission control center. So sort of drive engagement at a massive scale. And then the final thing that we're dying to do is use new on-chain technologies to change the way that people engage with a nonprofit like us and really make them able to essentially have a say into what we're doing. So in addition to sort of democratize the full-time access on the vessel, we are building an on-chain governance system. And where we have our sort of scientific committee, the scientific committee is going to be deciding out of hundreds of submissions from scientists, because for the typical science out there, typical scientist, it's very hard for them to get vessel time. We're going to be able to actually select, let's say, a dozen of missions, and then the participants are going to go and vote and decide out of these sort of 12 missions, what are the ones that make the most sense. They're going to be voting, again, out of a short list. We're inviting student submissions for student scientists to come on the ship on different missions and participate. And we're going to be inviting people, again, out of all the submissions from students that we have, vote on the most interesting ones to bring them on board. Also go and decide on some of the future locations. So, after the Galapagos, should we be, making a hard turn to the port side and go through the Panama Canal, or, go left and into the Marquesas? So again, try to give people that are contributing, that are involved, pretty much a much, much larger rate of control into what we do as an organization. And that way, we believe they're going to be much more engaged. And frankly, we feel that by pushing intelligence to the edges, we are actually going to be increasing the efficiency of what we're trying to do, as opposed to try to central plan everything. And how do we do that? We do that with on-chain technologies. How many of you know what a DAO is? Okay, excellent. You guys should be reading up. Just saying. So DAO is a distributed autonomous organization. So essentially, some people describe it as sort of, crypto wallets with votes. And that's pretty much the idea. So participants out there can essentially vote on all of these things and have the whole process being completely distributed. And then based on the results of this vote, that's going to determine what we do as an organization with the ship, where we funnel our resources, what are the areas we're essentially going to be focusing on. So we're going to be trying this for real. We also feel that we need a world-class vessel to do that, because what we're dealing with is real in terms of what's happening to the environment out there, the effects of that on the climate. This is not a computer game. It's very real and very scary. And we need to find ways to be able to change, not just the conversation, but change the way we're sort of engaging with people out there. We need to be not just talking to each other, but again, try to sort of increase the audiences we're going after. And this is one of our major goals. And right now, with, as Stefan said, after the merge with Ethereum and obviously Polygon going from proof of work to proof of stake, which means that the emissions are reduced by 3 orders of magnitude. That's That's a huge number, guys. It's a game changer. That means that we can actually start using on-chain technologies and smart contracts to really do things in a way that's, well, supremely environmental friendly, number one, but it brings us an amazing tool set to democratize access to the ship, democratize, well, decision making. So we are going to try and do this for real. Push decision making to the people and see what happens. And with that, I guess I need to invite Stefan back here, right? You're closing, right?
You're good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. So today we've seen 2 examples of solutions that are being built on Polygon. And as I mentioned, they are diverse. We have a very exciting summit coming up next week. Would love you to join. It includes organizations that are blockchain native, as well as organizations such as Conservation International. It includes registries like Vera, where we're looking to bring the conversation together and figure out how we can work together for a better future. So we hope to see you there.